Good day everyone, especially to our instructor, Mr. Anthony Gamale. Good day sir. Today I will going to discuss the chapter 5, photographic printing and chemical processing. Letter C, film processing procedure. Number 1, tank method of film development. E. Mix the developer, stop bath, and the fixture according to instructional manuals. Then bring it to the temperature, which is 20 to 21 C or 68 to 70 F. Letter B. In a dry area, lay out the film opener scissors, reel, and the tank so they can be located in the dark. Letter C. In complete darkness, open the film cartridge by simply prying out of the cap opposite and the end. Where the long pull core extends the film, they remove it from the tips in a pull core, then reel it. Reeling procedure. To load a metal spiral reel, hold the film with the emulsion side in or down loosely in one hand, while the other hand holds the reel. Engage the films in at the center clip or hook of the reel. Slightly squeeze the film by pressing between the thumb and forefinger so it narrows just enough to fit into the reel. Turn the reel with the other hand to pull the film into the reel. Do not apply excessive pressure with the hand holding and squeezing the film. Let the film pass freely. It will straighten out, fold in the spiral space of the reel. It is advised for beginners to practice with unwanted film several times. First with the lights on to make sure that the films will not buckle or one side of the film touching other in the reel. In such case, can portion in the image where the layer touch will not be developed because the solution cannot get to it. Once you get the feel of it, start the practice with eyes closed to simulate darkness until the exercise is perfect. After the reeling of the film is done, place it inside the daylight developing tank, then cover it. White light can now be opened. Remove the lid cover of the tank and pour the film developer slowly until the tank is full. Invert the tank, then it for now few seconds. Timer should start now. Intermediate should be made during the developing time. After 5 or 6 minutes, pour out or drain the developer. Pour into the stop bath the tank some more, and after 15 to 20 seconds, drain out and stop bath. Next is to pour in the fixing bath. Should be also be done every so often and after 15 to 20 minutes, drain the fixture from the tank. Note: use developer, stop bath, and fixture can be used again and again, but instead of pouring them back in the bottles of fresh and unused solution, pour them in a separate container so it will not contaminate the fresh and unused solution. For now, you wash the negative for several changes or febrilely in running water for another 15 to 20 minutes. Remove the negative from the developing reel. Get a sponge and immerse it in water, then squeeze it to remove excess water. Wipe the negative with the sponge slowly to remove the water adhering on the negative. This must be done of both sides of the negative. Water that on the surface of the negative can cause water mass if allowed to dry without wiping. Hand a negative to dry at a clean, dust-free place or better in a negative driller. Number 2. Dry method of film development. With this method of the film development, the developer is placed on a dry. It in total darkness, remove the film from the cartridge, then hold one end of the film and immerse the film in the developer in a dry, making sure that can be fine film is shortly until the whole length of the film is evenly. Timer will start now. With seesaw or pulling up or down motion, move the film from one end to the other, then back continuously until the developing time of 4 to 5 minutes is done. Then transfer it to the stop bath for 10 to 15 minutes. With the same motion, thereafter place the film in the fixture and execute some motion for about 5 minutes. Then you can now open the white light. Continue the fixing until the required time is finished. Next will be the washing and drying of the negative. Reeling procedure. To load a metal spiral reel, hold the film with the emulsion side in or down loosely in one hand, while the other hand holds the reel. Engage the film's end at the center clip or hook of the reel. Slightly squeeze the film by pressing between the thumb and forefinger so it narrows just enough to fit into the reel. Turn the reel with the other hand to pull the film into the reel. Do not apply excessive pressure with the hand holding and squeezing the film. Let the film pass freely. It will straighten out, fold in the spiral space of the reel. It is advised for beginners to practice with unwanted film several times. First with the lights on to make sure that the films will not buckle or one side of the film touching other in the reel. In such case, can portion in the image where the layer touch will not be developed because the solution cannot get to it. Once you get the feel of it, start the practice with eyes closed to simulate darkness until the exercise is perfect. After the reeling of the film is done, place it inside the daylight developing tank, then cover it. White light can now be opened. Remove the lid cover of the tank and pour the film developer slowly until the tank is full. Invert the tank, then it for now few seconds. Timer should start now. Intermediate should be made during the developing time. After 5 or 6 minutes, pour out or drain the developer. Pour into the stop bath the tank some more, and after 15 to 20 seconds, drain out and stop bath. Next is to pour in the fixing bath. Should be also be done every so often, and after 15 to 20 minutes, drain the fixture from the tank. Note: use developer, stop bath, and fixture can be used again and again, but instead of pouring them back in the bottles of fresh and unused solution, pour them in a separate container so it will not contaminate the fresh and unused solution. For now, you wash the negative for several changes or febrilely in running water for another 15 to 20 minutes. Remove the negative from the developing reel. Get a sponge and immerse it in water, then squeeze it to remove excess water. Wipe the negative with the sponge slowly to remove the water adhering on the negative. This must be done of both sides of the negative. Water that on the surface of the negative can cause water mass if allowed to dry without wiping. Hand a negative to dry at a clean, dust-free place, or better, in a negative driller. Number 2. dry method of film development. With this method of the film development, the developer is placed on a dry. It in total darkness remove the film from the cartridge, then hold one end of the film and immerse the film in the developer in a dry, making sure that can be film is shortly until the whole length of the film is evenly. Timer will start now. With seesaw or pulling up or down motion, move the film from one end to the other, then back continuously until the developing time of 4 to 5 minutes is done. Then transfer it to the stop bath for 10 to 15 minutes. With the same motion, thereafter place the film in the fixer and execute some motion for about 5 minutes. Then you can now open the white light. Continue the fixing until the required time is finished. Next will be the washing and drying of the negative. Letter D. Developer formulation. A typical component of a black and white developer area. We have solvent, developing agent, preservative, accelerator or activator, and the last is restrainer. Various chemicals can serve these functions. Chemicals chosen are determined whether it is slow and fast acting, produce high, normal, or low contrast, active maximum emulsions, speed, creates fine grain, or act in a number of ways. Letter E. Stop bath. Stop bath can be plain water only with 28% glacial acetic acid. Letter F. Fixing bath formula. The chemical component of a mixing bath are: number 1 is water, number 2 dissolving agent, number 3 preservative, number 4 neutralizer, and the last is hardener. Letter G. Photographic printing. There are two general types of photographic printing. We have contact printing. Contact printing is the procedure of exposing photographic print materials while it is pressed in contact with the negative being reproduced. This is the simplest and the most economical method of photographic printing. In terms of print equality, it can be surpassed enlargement in the tonality because There is no scattering of image forming lights as this can be in projected beams of an enlarged. It usually looks sharper because there is no lens in the printing system to add its aberration in the printmaking process, and also because details that may be slight out of focus are not enlarged, so the unsharpness are not apparent. Contact prints are generally made for proofs of 35 mm negative or copies, and the large format negatives like 5 times 7 or 8 times 10. It is also used to make positive copies of negatives. Contact prints can be made with either black and white or color materials. Contact prints may be made with glass and pad, pressure printing frame, contact printer, glass and pad. A sheet of clear glass about 2 inches bigger than the print size in all sides to give a border for handling and for its application of pressure. The pad should be of the same size as the glass. Next is pressure printing frame. This is like a picture frame with removable back lift spring on the back, locked into the place, and it exerts pressure the glass in the frame. Contact printer. For a large volume work and a more controlled printing, a contact printer is most effective and convenient. This is essentially a glass top box with an exposing light and a safe light for proper arrangement of the negatives and the paper. Inside and a pressure cover on the glass. Switch of the format control the lights. Printing procedure. Clean the glass from dust, dirt, and stains. Place the negative with the base side and the glass, and the emulsion facing of emulsion of the photographic paper. If a film rather than a photographic paper is being exposed, it must be backed with the black paper so reflected lights will not add unwanted exposure. Arrange that negatives to be printed on the photographic paper so every part of is accommodated with extra space on all sides. To prevent movement of the negative, the use of transparent tip is advised to hold the negative in place. Then press tightly together the negative and the paper with the glass and the pad. Expose it to light. Correct exposure is determined with this, just like a enlargement. Process is expose photographic paper with the same solution and processing time as in enlargement procedure, then wash and dry. Number 2, process project, projection printing and enlarging. This is a type of printing where the image in a negative is optically projected or enlarged into a print material for exposure to produce a picture image. That main equipment used in the enlarger. The basic or essential parts of enlarger are baseboard and its vertical column, lamp post, condenser is or diffuser, bellows, lens, focusing knob, elevating knob, red filter, electrical cord and switch. Essential accessory of an enlargement. We have negative carrier, easel or people holder, time for consistent and repeatable exposure. There are different sizes of enlargers. The size of enlarger is dependent of the size of the negative and is capable of accepting. There is the 8mm for microfilms, that 35mm, which is now the most common and popular, the 120mm or the bigger negative size like 4x5. The common light source for enlarger are, we have Tantalus lamp, halogen lamp, mercury vapor lamp, fluorescent lamp, sometimes referred to as cold light because of its somewhat diffuse illumination. This is generally used in portrait work. There are two general types of enlarger. We have diffusion type and consider type. Letter H. Enlarging procedure for black and white negative. Before undertaking the enlarging procedure, mix or prepare the chemical solution according to specification. The negative and the larger and the dark room, which must be cleaned and the proper order. The fundamental steps in enlarging are as follows. Number 1, clean both sides of the negative, then place it in the negative carrier with the emulsion, dual side, facing the lens of the enlarger or downward position. Insert the negative and the enlarger. Number 2, adjust the masking guides of the easel in accordance with the intended sides to be printed. Number 3, turn on the light, safe light, then turn off the white light. Number 4, turn switch of the enlarger, then adjust the length of the enlarger to its widest aperture. This will allow the brightest image of the easel. Number 5. Adjust focus by rotate the focusing knob for desired size of the image. Adjust the elevating knob for bigger. Magnification, push in the larger up, and for smaller magnification, pull and the enlarger down. Then the elevating knob securely focus may now be finely readjusted. Number 6. Switch off and enlarger's light. Close down the lens aperture 2 or 3 times from its optimum aperture. Be guided by its click step adjustment. Number 7. If this is the first time that the negative is being printed, make a series of test stripes or trial exposures on stripes time, generally 2 seconds interval each. Make sure that shiny side up when making the exposure. Number 8. Process the test stripe by immersing in it the developing solution for 1 to 1.5 minutes. Expose them evenly, it continuously by either moving the print or by rocking the tree. When the developing time is finished, lift off the print, strip dry it before transferring it to the next solution. Then transfer it to the stop bath for 10 to 15 seconds. Then in the fixing bath for a minute or so. Examine the test stripe under a white light to determine which of the exposure time is the best and if the contrast of the printing is alright. Otherwise, repeat the exercise whether shorter or longer exposure time is needed. Number 9. When the right exposure had been selected, make a full print process. It then evaluate the print for overall equality. Consider for possible cropping or local exposure control. Cropping is the excluding or omitting some image on the negative from the final print. Local exposure control is achieved by either burning in or dodging. Burn in is the adding of exposure time on a specific area to bring out details. Dodging is the holding back of some lights of a specific area to make it lighter in density. Take note, you can use your hand or improvise with a thick paper material for both burning or dodging technique. Generally, overexposed and underdeveloped print are often and lacks contrast on shadow areas and good gradation of tone in the lights. Underexposed and overdeveloped print usually lack details in the highlights, and they often show chemical fog or yellow stain. Be aware that there are some factors that affect the developing time, concentration, and freshness of the chemical solution. Full strength requires shorter developing time that are one. Likewise, exhaustion and contamination will need added developing time. Temperature. Room or more is physically the temperature of the solution is also an influence factor. Higher temperature means shorter developing time and vice versa. Lower temperature will mean longer developing time. Agitation or agitation. More agitation will lessen developing time. Current fixing baths only required 10 to 15 minutes fixing time. Formerly, it was 20 to 30 minutes. Wash the prints in running water for other 20 to 30 minutes. And the last is dry the print. Letter I. Equipment for paper developing. Number 1. 3 plastic trays. 1 each for the developer, stop, bath, and the fixture. The size of the tray is determined by the largest print size. Number 2. Metal, plastic, or bamboo, preferably with rubber ends to hold the print. Number 3. Rubber, surgical, hand gloves. There are some persons who are subject to skin allergic reaction with the solution for occasion where it. Timers, paper cutter, and the last is a bigger tray or tank for washing print. Letter G. Color printing process. A color negative film is printed on a color photographic paper, which is essentially similar to the film used in a camera, except that the emulsion layer is coated in a paper base and which are colorless. Colored couples are not used because the print would then be unsuitable for direct viewing. Printing a color negative in complementary color in a non-reversal print. Material reverse both tone scale and the color of the negative within the accuracy limit of the photographic process of the tone and color of the original subject. The blue essential layer produces a yellow color when developed. The green sensitive layer produces a magenta color when developed. The red sensitive layer produces color when developed. Color and density of the photograph taken with a color negative film can be adjusted quite freely to a certain extent. Rising the density will make an image darker, while low it will make the image lighter. And by adding, we can give the image overall blush, while removing yellow will emphasize magenta and giving the image of full flesh. Color film processing. The most important point to be emphasized in connection with film processing and the strict adherence to the instruction for the mixing of solution and crying out of the process step. The mixing and processing operators are not so difficult, yet they are exacting in the step, in the sense that the step must be standardized critically if repeatable results are to be obtained. Number 2, color printing. Printing of a color negatives are basically the same as black and white negatives. The major difference lies in the use of filters. Filters are used for correction of a color balance. Basically, thought the print can be made darker or lighter by increasing or decreasing exposure time. Color balance can be radically altered by changing the filter pack. Dodging technique is the same as in black and white printing. In the processing stage, color temperature control is more critical. Likewise, the processing time in each stage is more precise and accurate up to drying step of color print. Letter key, color compared to black and white. Since we live in a world of color, it is only natural that in general we find color photographs more realistic than black and white photographs. Comparatively speaking, back to black and white photographs are more of an abstraction from reality, or in other words, they are commonly accepted on their merits as picture. In a portrait, it is the likeness that is considered as the paramount importance, but other types of black and white print tends to be the judge without reference to or regard for the appearance of the original scene. As a result, tone rendition in a black and white print can vary over a wide range and still remaining satisfactory. Examination, analysis, comparison, and evaluation are black and white for contrast in their original appearance, so the use of color photograph is not advised. In the case of color photograph, however, an average observer tends to make a more direct comparison between subject and reproduction. His thoughts and comment will be based on the considerable greater extent on his recollection of the original scene or his conception of how the original scene should have appeared. If the color photograph is to be satisfactory, skin and other objects which have definite appearance in the mind of the observer must be represented with reasonable accuracy, both in terms of tone gradation and color rendering. Color adds and more dimension, figurative scene, to the more reproduction of the scene in tone of gray. Color photograph is subject to a more orientation and greater range effect than a black and white photographs. Letter E. Chemical processing. After the exposure of the film to light in the picture taking or the photographic paper during printing, the next step would generally be chemical processing. In black and white processing, the steps are development, stop, bath, and fixation. In color processing, the steps are color development, stop, fix, and stabilizer. We have chemical processing. First is development. Development is the process by which an invisible latent image in an emulsions and is made visible. In black and white emulsions, the image is composed of grains of black silver. In a color emulsion, the developed silver is replaced with cyan yellow and magenta dye. In developing chemically breaks down and reduce exposed silver crystals to form grains and metallic silver. This process or reaction is the same in both black and white films and photographic papers. Next is stop bath. The developer action in appropriate moment. It also prevents an contamination of the developer and fixer from each other. Fixation. A fixer makes the developed image permanent when is followed by the thought washing. In this process stage, the unexposed, underdeveloped silver crystals are dissolved and removed from the emulsion of the photographic material. Letter B. Film processing. Film processing can be carried out in trays, tanks, or mechanics equipment. Panchromatic materials must be handled in total darkness. Other materials like blue films and printing papers are handled under the safe light. We have the equipment for film processes. We have tank or tray, developing reel, opener for film cartridge. Some .35mm films have a reservoir that can be snapped open by hand, but others can be opened with a pair of pliers. Scissors to cut the tank of the film. Thermometer, timer, funnel, photographic sponge, film clips for drying, glass or plastic bottles, gallon size for storing mix solution. Small format files like the 3.35mm is best developed in a cyclical daylight. Developing tank that accumulate is a spiral reel. The tank and the reel can be a stainless steel or made of hard plastic. These tanks usually have a light tight with provision for powering solution in and out well covered so that only with one tank is required to the entire process. Metal reels have a center clip or hook to hold one end of the film, and the remaining length lips into the grooves created by the spiral. Metal reels come in a fixed size. The plastic reel is loaded by simply pushing the film into the spiral from the outer end. It has a flange that moves with back and front action, and the film had been engaged of the outside guide slots. The rocket movement feeds smoothly into the grooves. Plastic reel can be adjusted to accumulate different size film.